They hid my passport in the laundry room and left for the cruise without me. My own daughter texted a smiley face from the deck. We figured you'd just slow things down. So I booked a better ship, solo first class and twice the price. They wanted distance. So I sent them the invoice and charged it to the account I still own. We're about to begin, but if you'd like, share where you're joining from. It reminds me this story doesn't echo into silence. It lands somewhere real. Drop it in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe. The trunk was closed. So was the door to that version of me. Nina stood at the edge of her front porch, suitcase neatly zipped, a folder of cruise documents tucked under her arm like a school kid's binder. She glanced at her watch, 6:42 a.m. The early Charleston sky hung thick with humidity, the marshland breathing a quiet mist through the Spanish moss. This morning was supposed to mark the beginning of her first real vacation in 20 years. She'd paid for it. After all, the Merritt family Caribbean cruise, as Carla dubbed it, Wes said they couldn't swing it this year. What with the house insurance going up and Emma's orthodontist bills. But if Nina wanted to bless the family with a gift, they'd accept it. Nina had smiled, nodded, paid in full, and tucked away the silent sting like she always did. Her phone buzzed. A text from Wes. Wes 6:47 a.m. Long lines at the port. We went ahead early. Just Uber. Nina blinked. We went ahead. Her cab was scheduled for 7:15. The ship didn't leave until 9 o'clock. She had packed early, stayed up late printing everyone's boarding passes, even stitched up the hem on Carla's linen pants when she left them crumpled in the laundry. She slid her key into the lock and went back inside. The safe, that's where it was. Her passport, stored alongside her birth certificate, and a little envelope of cash. She opened the hall closet, crouched, twisted the dial. Nothing. Her passport was gone. She stood slowly, her hands steady a moment ago, now trembled against her sides. She opened the drawer beneath the safe, then the bathroom cabinet, the kitchen, her purse. Her suitcase unzipped everything, dug through socks, sunscreen bottles, even shook out her toiletry bag in the sink. Gone. She called Wes. No answer. Carla. Straight to voicemail. Emma. The line rang twice, then a breath. Emma? Nina kept her voice soft. Mimi? The girl whispered. Then a long pause. I can't talk long. Where are you? Emma exhaled into the receiver like a secret about to break. They said you weren't feeling well. Mom told the port check-in that you stayed behind. What? No, Emma. Where's my bag? My passport. Silence. Then in the faintest voice, Mom took your carry-on. She said you wouldn't need it. The call cut out. Nina stood frozen, phone still pressed to her ear long after the line went dead. Her ears rang. She pulled up the cruise line's app, fingers suddenly slick with sweat. The live tracker loaded slowly. Then SS Vista Legacy. Status departed. 6:34 a.m. They hadn't left early, because of long lines. They left early because they never meant to take her. She sat down hard on the edge of her couch, the folder slipping from her lap. Rage didn't come right away. It arrived slowly, coiling around her spine like steam rising through a kettle, quiet, steady, precise. She stared at the framed family photo above the fireplace, her face just barely in the frame, off to the side like furniture in a model home. Something itched in the back of her mind, a hunch. She stood again, slower this time, walked to the guest room, Carla's room when they stayed over. The door creaked open, lavender spray hung faint in the air. On the dresser, a pile of fashion magazines, tanning oil, a stack of folded spa brochures from the cruise line, premium treatments, members-only lounge, concierge priority. She opened the top drawer. There, nestled between a curling iron and a box of unopened eye masks, lay Nina's maroon passport. Her name gleamed under the lamplight like an accusation, and beneath it, her boarding pass. She picked it up slowly, eyes scanning the page. Merritt Nina, cabin reassignment, not on manifest. She didn't feel the tears gather, but she felt them dry up just as fast. Her breath was steady when she straightened her back. She slipped the passport into her sweater pocket, placed the spa brochures neatly back into place, and closed the drawer with the same care she used to seal envelopes at the post office. But she wasn't delivering for others anymore. Not after this. Nina stepped into the narrow glass entry of Castor and Company Travel, the little office tucked between a wine bar and a consignment boutique on Queen Street. The air inside smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and coconut sunscreen samples. A silver bell jingled overhead, and Dina Castor looked up from behind her desk, mid-click, her blonde bob bouncing with surprise. Nina Merritt. Girl, I haven't seen you since homeroom. Nina managed a polite smile, but her voice was flint. I need you to pull up my family's cruise reservation. Dina stood slowly. Sure, sure. Come on in. Let's take a look. She gestured toward a small bistro table in the back, already cluttered with brochures and an untouched Diet Coke. Her tone shifted once she caught Nina's expression: tight lips, red eyes, jaw set. What happened? Dina asked gently, powering up the monitor. Did you miss the ship? I wasn't allowed on it, Nina said, because apparently I wasn't on it at all. Click, click, scroll. Dina's eyes darted across the screen, then widened. Oh, no, 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 Nina, this shows you were removed from the manifest 2 days ago. You were booked initially, then someone submitted a change form online. Nina leaned in, pulse thudding in her ears. Who changed it? Dina's voice dropped. It says, Carla Merritt, logged in using the original booking code. She marked you as medically unfit to travel. There's even a note. Want to hear it? No, just tell me. Was the card charged? Dina didn't need to answer. She turned the monitor slightly toward Nina. Payment method. Visa ending in 7102. Merritt N. Nina's stomach went cold. All upgrades. Excursions, the concierge package, port transport. Everything went through your card. Dina said quietly. The suite is listed under Carla's name now, with Wes as secondary. Emma's still under your original family reservation. But Nina, they never removed your card. Her voice was calm, but her hands had curled into fists against the armrest. So they downgraded me to a sick ghost and upgraded themselves to luxury. Dina looked furious on her behalf. This is criminal. I can print everything. Dates, login records, transaction receipts. You didn't authorize this, right? Of course not, Nina said. Her fingers itched toward her phone. I need the number for the fraud department. Dina handed her the printouts wordlessly, then added, you can also file a formal complaint with the cruise line. They take identity issues seriously, especially if the charges came from one of their portal accounts under someone else's name. Nina stepped outside the office, the late morning sun burning sharp against her skin. She stood in the shadow of the wrought iron balcony above, pulled out her phone and called her bank. Hello, she said, voice clipped but even. I need to dispute several unauthorized charges on my account. Yes, they relate to travel. No, I didn't approve them. As she spoke, a young couple passed by eating gelato, laughing, their sandals slapping the cobbled street. Nina turned away from the sound. The bank rep put her on hold. By 12:17 p.m., the dispute had been logged, a hold placed on the card, and the fraud division had opened a case. Nina tucked the papers under her arm, walked straight down Broad Street toward the water, and booked herself into the most expensive room at the boutique hotel, overlooking the marina. When the concierge asked if she needed help with her bags, she simply handed over her suitcase and said, I'm staying until I figure out what to do with the people who just stole my vacation. Upstairs, she stood by the glass balcony doors, watching the yachts bob gently in the water. Charleston's summer light danced across the waves, sharp and golden. Her fury had crystallized, now clean, clinical, precise. She wouldn't scream. She wouldn't beg. She would correct the ledger. The soft clink of a bell echoed from the hotel lobby below. A voice followed it, warm, familiar. Didn't expect to see you dockside. Nina turned. At the bottom of the staircase stood Jordan Vance, sun-kissed and crisp in a navy polo, holding a paper cup of espresso, and wearing a look that suggested fate had just dealt him a welcome card. The kind of smile Jordan Vance gave had sharp edges. It didn't wound, but it cut through fog. He didn't ask permission before hugging Nina right there in the hotel lobby. His polo still smelled faintly of sea salt and aftershave. She let him pull back and scan her face. "You look like someone who just realized her anchor was never tied to the right dock," he said, only half joking. Nina exhaled. "I think they untied it for me." They sat in the lounge, two high-backed chairs angled toward the marina. Boats drifted lazily outside, sails slack in the afternoon heat. Jordan stirred sugar into his espresso. "So tell me what they did." She did, in steady sentences and clipped timelines. No theatrics. She handed him the cruise reservation printouts Dina had given her, let him scan the fraudulent charges and the bolded words. Medical limitations, not traveling. When she finished, he leaned back and gave a low whistle. "Damn, that's a special kind of evil." "They're calling it a misunderstanding," she said, eyes fixed on the water. "I call it identity theft with a side of room service." Jordan grinned, but it faded into something gentler. "I've got 3 charters sitting idle until Friday. One of them, Andromeda, is doing a slow sail to Savannah and back. 2 nights, full crew. Real teak floors, not that plastic mess they use on cruise decks." "You want it?" She blinked. "You're offering me a yacht?" "I'm offering you silence, stars and a captain who doesn't make announcements every hour about bingo," he said. "We'll comp half. You get the master suite and the sunrise." Nina hesitated only long enough to realize how little hesitation she had left in her. "Book it?" The next day, Charleston felt like a city reborn. The sky was cobalt clean, the sidewalks dry and humming with energy. Nina strolled past the boutique shops on King Street, finally buying the white linen dress she'd tried on last year but told herself was too frivolous. She picked up new sandals, a silk scarf, and a pair of oversized sunglasses that made her look exactly as untouchable as she felt. At the marina, she dropped off her bag, then wandered into the spa that shared a wall with the hotel. "Something light but permanent," she told the stylist, tugging at her shoulder-length hair. The result was a sleek bob that grazed her cheekbones, modern, sharp, and just a little dangerous. When she returned to the hotel, her keycard had been upgraded to the penthouse suite. Dina stood in the lobby with her arms crossed and a wicked smile. "Consider it on the house," she said. "This story deserves revenge with a view." That night, Nina stood barefoot on her balcony, glass of wine in hand, when her phone buzzed. A single message from Emma. "Emma? 8:14 p.m. They're posting like nothing happened, but I saw them arguing when you weren't on board. Mom said, she'll calm down, she always does." Nina didn't reply. Instead, she pulled out a note card from the hotel stationery, wrote 7 words in slow, deliberate script. "I found the passport. Have a nice cruise." The next morning, she slipped it under her son's front door. No return address, no signature. Andromeda was 32 feet of coastal grace, all clean lines and brushed chrome. The crew met her at the dock with sun hats and handshakes. Within minutes of stepping aboard, she'd been handed a chilled mimosa and a pair of deck shoes with her name stitched inside. The ocean welcomed her like a secret. She stood at the stern as Charleston blurred behind her, the harbor shrinking into fog-draped silhouettes. The air was rich with salt and lemon, and gulls dipped overhead like punctuation marks in the sky. Jordan appeared beside her with a bottle of champagne. "This," she murmured, "is what they didn't even know to dream of." He popped the cork, poured her a glass, then lifted his own. "To clarity," he said. "To not having to clean up after other people's messes anymore," she replied, clinking. Jordan sipped, then smiled like he'd been waiting for this moment to land. "By the way, I've got a friend who handles legal consulting, fraud, contracts, the sharp end of things. I told her about you, you'll want to call her." Nina adjusted her laptop on the polished desk in her upgraded suite, the light from the harbor spilling golden across the room. Her fingers hovered over the touchpad as the Zoom call connected. She'd already showered, dressed in crisp navy slacks and a blouse too nice for a hotel room meeting, but it wasn't about looking good, It was about showing up like she wasn't the kind of woman you underestimated twice. The screen flickered to life. Lara Soto appeared in full resolution, a woman in her early 50s with dark lipstick, silver-streaked hair twisted into a power knot, and the expression of someone who could dismantle an enemy with a well-placed claws. "Well," Lara said, tilting her head, "you don't look like someone who just got left at the dock by her own family. But I hear looks deceive. I look better than I feel." Nina replied, "Perfect. Revenge wears best with clean lines." Lara's sarcasm was surgical. Nina liked her immediately. They dove in fast. Nina shared her screen, clicking through the PDFs Dina had provided: booking records, cruise itinerary, receipts. Lara's gaze never wavered as she scrolled, scanned, and scribbled into a leather-bound notebook like a courtroom assassin. "All right, here's what I'm seeing," Lara said. "They used your name to authorize all upgrades, concierge suite, early boarding, port excursions, even the automatic gratuity increase. Excursions, wine tastings, underwater scooters, couples massages in the spa." Lara arched a brow. "Did you plan on snorkeling in Curacao with a man who doesn't know how to swim?" "I didn't authorize any of it," Nina said. "Not a single change." Lara grinned. "Good. Let's go to war." Nina didn't flinch. "What's the first move?" Fraud is a slippery word, especially with family. But signatures? Now that's concrete. She flipped through the documents. "I want the original booking contracts, the ones you did sign, and the ones they submitted after." "I'll call Dina," Nina said, already pulling out her phone. An hour later a scanned file arrived. Dina had labeled it, "Original Booking, Merit Household.pdf." Nina emailed it straight over. Lara opened it with surgical precision, dragging it side by side with the updated cruise manifest. "There it is," she muttered. "Your original signatures here, bottom of page 4. And here," she zoomed in on the altered file, "is where they changed the names, upgraded the suite, and wrote Traveler 1. Declined participation, medical exemption with your initials forged underneath." Nina stared at the screen. "They even checked the box for allocation of guest funds to existing party members," Lara added, "which means they legally tried to reroute your portion of the payment to themselves." Nina's voice turned low. "They stole the trip and charged me for it." Lara's tone sharpened. "That's financial exploitation. Add in the forged initials, and we're dancing into felony territory. I'll prep documents for a full fraud report. You'll file through your bank again, this time with documentation attached." Nina filed it before the hour was over. A different tone from the bank rep this time. More clipped, more careful. "We'll escalate this. Expect a case number within 24 hours. Back on Zoom, Lara leaned back and sipped what looked suspiciously like a martini in a teacup. "You're surprisingly calm for someone about to light a legal fire under her own family." "I spent my life diffusing drama. Quiet's my sharpest weapon," Nina said. Lara smiled approvingly. "You'll do just fine." Nina was about to close her laptop when Lara's second screen pinged in the background. A separate window blinked open. Lara's eyes darted over the subject line, and her entire posture shifted. "Well, well, what is it?" Lara turned the camera slightly. Nina could just make out a report header. "Private investigations, discreet clients division." "I had a PI check the ship's port cams," Lara said. "They spotted Carla using your travel card yesterday. In the luxury shopping corridor, holding a champagne flute." Nina didn't say a word, but her lips curled, slow and deadly. The photos arrived in Nina's inbox at 7:14 a.m., time-stamped in sharp. Carla was in a breezy Capitan, oversized sunglasses, pushed back on her head, a mimosa in one hand and a luxury boutique bag in the other. Wes trailed behind her, swiping a card with the oblivious grace of someone using money he didn't earn. "Subject Port of St. Thomas, 1043 Bolt said. Used credit ending in 7102 for priority access and purchases at duty-free shops." Lara's message followed seconds later. "You were right. They didn't just abandon you. They impersonated you. Every swipe's a receipt to bury them." Nina stared at the screen, her coffee cooling untouched beside her. She'd seen this coming. She just hadn't realized how deeply they'd sunk their hands into her life. Her phone buzzed. Emma text, 7:18 a.m. She keeps trying to log into your bank app. I saw her with your email open on Dad's iPad. They're freaking out now. What's going on? Nina didn't answer. Not yet. Instead, she opened her banking app, went to settings, and initiated the nuclear option. All device logins revoked, passwords changed, security questions reset, facial recognition disabled. Then she froze the joint card she'd foolishly left open for emergencies. She moved quietly, efficiently, like she used to during holiday shifts at the post office, sorting chaos into order while everyone else panicked. Her phone rang. It was Lara. Morning, Nina said. Hope you're feeling vengeful. I just sent cease and desist notices to their cabin, electronic and hard copy. The cruise's legal department is getting looped in. Do they take this seriously? Nina asked. They have to. It's not just a family squabble anymore. It's wire fraud across state and international lines. And my bank? Lara exhaled like she'd been waiting for this question. Confirmed. Based on the documentation, your charges are being formally reversed as fraudulent. Your name is being removed from the transaction logs. Nina let out a slow, clean breath. That means they're now fully financially liable for everything on that ship. Every room service tray, every massage, every drink they pretended to toast with. Outside her hotel window, Charleston's harbor was waking up, boats humming out of slips, seagulls circling the masts, the faint smell of salt and diesel oil in the air. Nina leaned against the cool glass and watched the calm creep across the water. They wanted me invisible, she said. Now they'll have to explain who they are without me. An hour later, Lara emailed again. Cruise Line has launched an internal fraud investigation. They've frozen the affected onboard account while they assess. Nina could already imagine it. Carla at the spa wrapped in a white robe, cucumber slices tossed aside while the receptionist politely informed her, I'm sorry ma'am, this card is not authorized, and your access level has been downgraded. She didn't need revenge that screamed. She needed revenge that rang in high heels across marble floors, cool and undeniable. That evening, Emma sent another text. Emma 7:03 p.m. She lost it in the spa, loud. People stared. Dad told her to keep her voice down. I'm staying in the teen lounge. I can't deal with this. Nina responded finally. Nina 7:04 p.m. You don't have to deal with any of it, sweetheart. You just enjoy the ocean. I've got the storm covered, and she did. By the time Carla's manicure was halfway done, her cruise account had been frozen, access denied. The attendant at the counter smiled apologetically, trying to explain policy. Carla didn't smile back. Wes appeared 15 minutes later, jaw clenched, muttering something about technical errors. They left the spa together, Carla's sandals squeaking down the hallway like angry punctuation marks. The next morning, a notification appeared in Nina's inbox from the cruise line's onboard services department. Subject, billing account 214 Mare. Action required, body payment method associated with this account has been reversed. New method of payment must be provided to continue access to premium services. Nina read it over breakfast. Sliced fruit, yogurt and the kind of strong black coffee she made only for herself. She smiled into her cup. Nina never used to post much. Just birthday shots of Emma, the occasional garden bloom, and an annual Christmas wreath on her front door. But that morning, as the Andromeda cut through a ribbon of blue glass water, the air still and heavy with sea salt and sun, she knew exactly what she wanted to say. She stood at the bow, the breeze lifting her scarf like a flag of quiet rebellion. Jordan handed her a glass of Veuve Clicquot. No label showing, no need for logos, just the crisp tilt of the glass, the glint of ocean behind it, and her hand holding steady. She took the photo herself. Then she opened the Facebook app she hadn't touched in months. Photo Champagne Sea. A sliver of white deck rail, caption upgraded. Without liars, she hit post and turned her phone off. It didn't stay off long. By mid-afternoon the post had over 70 comments and counting. A former coworker commented, "Wait, I thought you were on the big family cruise." Someone else, "Nina, what happened?" And then under a comment from one of Carla's college friends, "I saw your daughter-in-law's post. This doesn't match." Nina didn't reply. She didn't have to. Across Instagram, Carla was busy staging false bliss. Photos of deck chairs, sushi platters, and sun hats, but no captions mentioning Nina. None of the group selfies included her. A smiling Wes posed with Emma beside a carved fruit platter, but even through the filters, the tension showed. The likes were thinner than usual. And now, the comments had begun. At Simply Sydney Lee, "Didn't your Mile pay for the cruise? Why's she not in any of these?" At Michelle 4 Wellness, "Weird how Nina's on a yacht and y'all are pretending she's not missing." At Joy of Brunch, "I hope you didn't do what I think you did." That night, as Charleston glowed gold and the Andromeda docked quietly for fuel, Nina's phone buzzed again. A tag from Castor and Company Travel. At CastorCo_travel. Client feature. When your plan B becomes a better plan entirely. Nina Merritt Sales and Style aboard the Andromeda. Curated by Castor and Company photo. Nina laughing at sunset, champagne in hand. Hashtags #dignified. Departures #solo style #better than before. It caught wind. Locals recognized the marina. A regional travel blog reposted it. One Charleston influencer commented, "This is the energy I need in my life. No more cruises with people who fake love you." By morning, the Merritt family cruise was no longer a secret. It was a story. Dina texted her, "FYI, your feature's trending. I may frame the post." Emma sent one too. "They're freaking out. Mom told Dad it's slander. He said it's a caption." Then they fought for an hour. Nina smiled but didn't type anything back. She pulled the covers over her lap, looked out at the horizon, and sipped tea with Lowen. Across the water, Carla and Wes scrambled. Carla began editing captions, turning off comments, archiving posts. She uploaded a carefully worded video in the cruise cabin, smiling too hard, voice too high. "So grateful for this time away," she said, "even though it's been a bit unexpected. Family dynamics can be complicated." It fell flat. The comments were relentless. Translation: "You got caught." Meanwhile, Jordan's yacht team published a piece on their website, Dignified Departures, when Grace sails solo. The lead photo was Nina's silhouette at sunset. The write-up praised solo luxury voyages, but beneath the poetic lines, it echoed louder. This wasn't a story of luxury, it was about liberation. Then, just after sunset, as Nina sat barefoot on the deck with Emma's latest message open on her screen, another text lit up her phone. "Carla, 7:42 p.m. You'll regret this." Nina stared at the message, unmoved. She didn't type anything. She didn't need to. Because in that moment, across 2 coasts and one very public humiliation, Carla Merritt realized she no longer controlled the narrative. By Wednesday morning, Nina's silence had become louder than Carla's spin. Screenshots flooded in from friends and acquaintances, private messages, group chats, even a Facebook comment thread, where Carla was already rewriting the script. Carla in a DM, "Nina's been off for months. She's paranoid, forgetful. It's honestly sad. We thought we were doing what was best." She was confused about the dates. "I wish people knew the full story." In another thread, "This wasn't theft. It was a family miscommunication. She offered us the trip, then forgot. I think she's declining, and it's heartbreaking." The audacity left Nina breathless, but not in shock. She knew the playbook. Twist the truth, blur the lines, cast the shadow long enough until people start believing there must be one. But Nina didn't respond. Instead, she forwarded the messages to Lara. "She's smearing you," Lara said during a quick call, voice clipped. "Perfect. That means she's scared. And scared people get sloppy." Later that morning, Nina received an alert from her bank app. Fraud case status escalated. Active investigation. A minute later, an official email arrived confirming that the financial investigation had found probable cause for identity misuse. The card had been closed. Charges reversed. A separate fraud case was opened under Carla Merritt's name. pending cooperation with cruise line security and relevant authorities. Carla's version of a misunderstanding was officially upgraded to misuse with malice. Let's turn this into a full-court press, Lara said during their scheduled check-in. I'm submitting formal documentation to the Charleston PD's Financial Crimes Unit and flagging it to the cruise line's legal department. This isn't a private matter anymore. It's criminal behavior. And Wes? Nina asked. I've drafted notices to freeze any access he has to your financials. You're clean now, but I'm going a step further. That night, as the sun melted into the sea, Nina sat on the hotel balcony, the wind threading its fingers through her hair. The Andromeda had docked again for crew maintenance, and for once Nina had nowhere to be. The calm should have felt strange, but it didn't. It felt earned. Her phone buzzed. Subject: Let's talk from wes.merritt@gmail.com. Body: Hey mom. Look, I know things have gone sideways. Carla's upset, but maybe we can talk. Let's not destroy each other over this. We're family, right? No apology, just concern over consequences. The kind of plea that came not from guilt, but from fear of losing the last piece of ground. Nina didn't reply. A few minutes later, her phone lit up again. This time it was from Emma. Emma, 7:12 p.m. Mom lost it at the concierge. She screamed at him about VIP access being revoked. People stared. I pretended not to know her. Sorry, I just couldn't. Attached was a blurry photo. Carla mid-rant, arms flailing, a red-faced concierge trying to calm her down. The caption on the desk screen behind her read, "Account frozen. Please visit guest services." Nina zoomed in on the image slowly, then leaned back in her chair. Somewhere in the distance, a seagull shrieked and dove into the harbor like it had a mission. Later that night, Laura messaged again. Laura, just a heads up. I pulled the financial threads tighter. Any account linked to your prior authorizations is now frozen, including Wes's backup card. They'll be feeling the vacuum pretty soon. Nina stared at the message, then turned her phone face down. The lights of the marina flickered below. Inside the suite, a pot of chamomile tea steeped on the nightstand. Then came the knock. 3 sharp raps. Official. Controlled. Nina opened the door to find a uniformed deputy standing tall beneath the hallway light. "Ma'am," he said, pulling off his hat. "Sorry to bother you this late. Your daughter-in-law just filed a wellness check request." Nina blinked once. "A what?" "She's claiming you may be mentally below, potentially a danger to yourself. We're required to follow up in person." For a second, Nina just stood there, silent. Then her jaw set. Her voice was low. "Come in, officer. Let me show you what crazy looks like when it hires a lawyer." The sheriff stood in Nina's hotel doorway, one hand resting lightly on his belt, the other holding a clipboard that looked like it belonged in a courtroom, not a marina-side boutique hotel. His expression was neutral, professional, but there was curiosity in his eyes, the kind reserved for people whose names had been whispered before the paperwork landed. "I understand this is unexpected, ma'am," he said gently. "Just need to ask a few questions. You mind if I come in?" Nina stepped aside, holding the door open with the kind of composure that made apologies feel unnecessary. "Please, come see what madness looks like. Organized by subject, time-stamped and notarized." He gave a dry chuckle as he entered, boots echoing lightly across the room's polished floors. The suite was immaculate. A leather folder lay open on the desk, papers fanned neatly beside a legal pad, and a laptop still aglow with the open email chain from Laura. Nina didn't sit. She gestured toward the folder. "You'll find printed copies of the bank's fraud report, the original cruise documentation, the forged alterations, and photographic evidence of my daughter-in-law using my identity. If you flip to the 3rd tab, there's the cease and desist letter her lawyers already received. She filed this wellness check right after her cruise account got frozen." The sheriff blinked, flipping pages with increasing interest. "Ma'am, this is extensive. I'm thorough when I'm pushed," Nina said, voice calm but iron-laced. "And as you'll see, I'm not the one unstable here." He sat down in the guest chair, reading closely. "You've got identity theft, financial fraud, and now a false wellness claim intended to discredit a witness during an open investigation. Nina met his eyes. That last part is why you're really here, isn't it? The sheriff nodded slowly. Yeah, and frankly, this crosses into harassment under elder fraud statutes. Filing a false welfare concern to interfere with an active case? That's not just petty. That's criminal. He closed the folder, tapping a finger on the cover. Want me to file it formally? I can press it tonight. Nina paused, then gave a quiet smile. Not yet, let her keep digging her own grave. The depth will matter later. The sheriff laughed, then stood. Well, I won't waste your time, Miss Merritt. But just for the record, if more of our seniors were like you, my job would be a hell of a lot easier. As he reached the door, he hesitated. You want a copy of the official report? Send it to my attorney, Nina said. She likes souvenirs. By late afternoon, Charleston's humidity had thickened like syrup, clinging to the windows as Nina closed her laptop and poured herself a glass of sparkling water. Her phone buzzed again. Emma. Emma, 4:37 p.m. Mom says she's gonna flip the story when you get home. She's acting like you're the one who locked her out of her own vacation. Nina, 4:39 p.m. She can try. But stories fall apart when receipts start speaking louder than rumors. Lara was already documenting the false wellness check in her legal record. Her email came in just after sunset. Subject: retaliation log, Carla M. Body, filed under elder harassment. And before you ask, yes, it's admissible. Let her keep talking. That night, as the Andromeda set out for a short loop around the harbor, Jordan appeared on the upper deck with 2 glasses of wine and a thin file folder in hand. I pulled a few strings, he said, handing her the glass. You've got a slot for an interview, local lifestyle blog, high readership, classy tone. They want to highlight women who took their power back. No drama, just dignity. Nina raised an eyebrow. You scheduled me for press. I gave them your number. You're the one with the headline. She sipped, thoughtful. Fine. Let them see the view from here. Back in her suite, the air was cool, calm, until her phone pinged. Lara, 9:17 p.m. Cruise line just sent official notice Carla and Wes are banned from all future bookings, permanently. Nina didn't laugh, but she let out a sound that was close, something like satisfaction disguised as breath. The headline hit Charleston's digital front page at 7:03 a.m., just as the tide turned and the first light of day cast a golden sheen over the harbor. Left behind, then lifted higher. Q1 Charleston woman turned betrayal into boundaries, Low Country Living magazine. Nina sat at the cafe table in the hotel's garden courtyard, a linen napkin folded neatly in her lap, her black coffee steaming. The magazine's editor had honored every request. No sensationalism, no names outside of her own, and no editorial spin. Just facts. Truth, laid bare. The article opened with a quiet punch. Nina Merritt, 61, paid for a family cruise and was left behind without warning. But what followed wasn't sorrow. It was strategy. It outlined the timeline, the unauthorized removal, the forged initials, the bank reversals, the quiet war waged through documents and silence. No slander, no accusation, just a steady unraveling of what had been done and how she had undone it with poise and proof. While the ship sailed away with her name still on the bill, Miss Merritt booked her own vessel, both literal and metaphorical, a chartered yacht. A fraud investigation, and the empowerment of boundaries followed. By 9 a.m., the comments section was on fire. This is elder fraud and emotional abuse. Full stop. I work in banking. What she did. Flawless case building. Carla sounds like the type who needs consequences with interest. I know Nina. Quiet but fierce. Never counted her out. Nina didn't reply to any of them. She just refreshed the page once, then closed the browser. Her phone buzzed. Lara, 9:21 a.m. They published it, and it's brilliant. I'm sending the link to opposing counsel just to save time. Dina, 9:24 a.m. Girl, you're on fire. I've had 3 walk-ins ask for whatever she booked. Jordan 9:26 a.m. Docksides never looked this good. I printed the article and taped it inside the captain's quarters. But the biggest surprise came an hour later. Nina's bank, Sunlight First Credit Union, shared the article internally on their employee dashboard. Fraud Prevention Spotlight, a case study in documentation, dignity, and defense. The subheading, Charleston member Nina Merritt, turned a personal betrayal into a procedural masterpiece. A screenshot of her organized file system, taken with permission by Lara, accompanied a bullet-point breakdown of her fraud case's trajectory. Nina just stared at the screen when Lara forwarded the internal memo. Then she gave a soft laugh. Retired postal worker turned policy icon, she muttered. Well, I'll be damned. Then came the email she didn't expect so soon. Subject: Remerit booking dispute. Confidential offer to settle from cruise line legal counsel. Lara called within seconds. They want to settle, she said. Voice controlled but victorious. Apology, reimbursement, and get this. Carla and Wes are being banned from all future bookings, across all sister cruise lines, permanently. Nina's only response was a long sip of her coffee, followed by good. They should try building their own escape next time. That evening, while Nina watched sailboats drift through rose gold light, her phone vibrated with a single message from Emma. Emma, 6:31 p.m. I read the article, twice. I've never seen you look that strong. I'm proud of you. Seriously. Nina stared at the screen for a long time, then typed Nina, 6:35 p.m. Thank you, baby. I'm proud of you too. For seeing through it all, even when you didn't have to. Emma replied with a heart emoji. Then nothing more. The moment held. Just as Nina set her phone down, it buzzed again. A notification, legal portal access. Lara called seconds later. Brace yourself, she said. They just filed. Nina didn't have to ask. Defamation, Lara confirmed. They're suing you. Both of them. Nina leaned back in her chair, let the sky widen above her, and gave the smallest, most dangerous smile yet. They want a public fight now? She asked softly. Lara didn't hesitate. We'll give them a case study in regret. Lara didn't raise her voice when she said it. She never needed to, but the moment she uttered the phrase, we're countering with a civil suit for fraud, defamation, elder harassment, and emotional damages, it hit Nina harder than any courtroom gavel ever could. It was 7 a.m., and the hotel conference room smelled faintly of fresh coffee and legal vengeance. A single document sat on the table, pages crisp and still warm, from the office printer Lara had wheeled in from her car. Nina leaned over the filing and ran a fingertip down the first page like it was scripture. They thought dragging my name through court would scare me. They forgot who they taught to be quiet, Lara replied. Quiet people file first thing Monday morning. Within 24 hours, the case was officially docketed. Nina Merritt, Carla and Wesley Merritt. Lara had filed for expedited hearing, citing material evidence, reputational harm, and age-protected financial exploitation. Then the floodgates opened. The cruise line's legal counsel, suddenly eager to cooperate, sent over a clean packet of sworn statements. Their staff confirmed Nina was removed from the manifest without a required phone call, her card used for upgrades without a verified signature. Cabin attendants testified that Carla and Wes accessed perks tied directly to Nina's original VIP booking, and then came the transaction logs. Lara scanned them with razor focus. You want proof? Here's one. Wes used your card to buy a $1,100 watch at the Barbados port, claimed it was a crew tip. Nina didn't blink. That man hasn't tipped $10 in 10 years. A day later, Nina's private investigator delivered the final nail, photo evidence of Wes, not just standing at checkout counters, but physically holding and swiping her card at port shops. One image caught him signing a slip with a signature that looked like a toddler's forgery of her name. When confronted, Wes sent a vague response through a local attorney, claiming Carla handled everything and that he was unaware the card was. Lara grinned. He's trying to play the husband card. Passive, misled, too dumb to be guilty. He's too spineless to be innocent, Nina said. The judge approved the expedited court hearing. That week, Carla's social media presence, once a curated highlight reel of beachy poses and affiliate links, began to dry up. The blog reposts of Nina's article were spreading, and sponsors started jumping ship. First, a vegan skincare brand removed a collaboration post. Then a Charleston-based boutique unfollowed Carla publicly. And then came the worst for her, an apology video. Carla posted it from her cabin, glassy-eyed under bad lighting. "We never meant to hurt anyone," she began, voice trembly. This was all a misunderstanding, but comments were limited, and the backlash spilled into tagged posts. "You stole from your MBL and tried to make her look crazy. Don't gaslight the internet. You're not sorry. You're sorry you got caught. This woman built a life. You built a lie." Meanwhile, back in Charleston, things were sharpening. Lara was organizing evidence into a timeline so devastating it could have been sold as a limited series. "Your countersuit has weight," she told Nina over lunch, "and sympathy. Judges don't take elder fraud lightly. Especially not when it's organized. You make it sound like a gang." "No," Lara said with a cold smile, "I make it sound like racketeering with better lighting." Then came the final step. 2 subpoenas, notarized and hand-delivered, were taped to the Merritt front door just after 9 a.m. The morning Carla and Wes arrived home from their very expensive, very public meltdown of a vacation. Emma, still in her cabin, had texted Nina that morning, "They're flying back today. Mom's still trying to spin it, but she cried on the plane. Loud." Nina didn't respond. She was already sipping tea at the hotel window, watching Charleston's marina glitter in the distance. When Lara sent the photo of the subpoenas taped to the door, flapping slightly in the breeze like legal flags of surrender, Nina simply saved it to a folder titled "Closure." They docked to Cheers when they left. They came back to court papers. Nina sat in the corner of a marina-side cafe, half hidden behind the leaves of a potted palm and a pair of tortoiseshell sunglasses. She stirred honey into her tea with the calm precision of someone who already knew how this morning would unfold. Across the bay, the Vista Legacy slid back into port like a broken promise. From a distance, it still looked majestic, gleaming white tall decks, bright banners snapping in the wind. But Nina wasn't watching the ship. She was watching the gangway. Passengers emerged in colorful waves, dragging suitcases, hugging porters, taking selfies with Charleston's skyline in the background. A few children ran ahead of their parents, laughing. Nina's eyes didn't flinch until she saw the 2 figures she was waiting for. Wes looked thinner. Not sick but worn, the way someone looks when stress is trying to chew through pride. He carried a duffel bag slung over one shoulder and was scanning the crowd like he expected someone to throw a tomato. Carla followed, oversized sunglasses on despite the cloudy sky, pulling 2 designer suitcases that looked far too heavy for a weekend cruise. Her lips were pursed, jaw tight, fingers locked around the handle of her phone like it was a weapon. They paused on the dock. Carla turned in Nina's direction without seeing her, squinting like something was missing. Nina didn't move, just took a slow sip of her tea. A half hour later, Carla's heels clacked furiously across the sidewalk toward Castor and Company Travel. Nina watched as she yanked the door open, only to be met by Dina's outstretched hand and zero patience. "I don't think so," Dina said, her voice carrying across the sidewalk. "You lost the right to walk in here the second you forged someone's medical status. This is defamation." Carla shrieked. "No, honey," Dina replied. "It's customer protection. I run a business, not a confessional." She shut the door and pulled the shades. Carla stood on the sidewalk, fuming before stomping away toward the parking lot, dragging her pride behind her like a suitcase with a busted Meanwhile, another domino dropped, quietly but efficiently. That same morning, Wes's employer, an insurance firm with a no-tolerance fraud clause, received an anonymous envelope. Inside, copies of the investigation summary, transaction logs and the original bank report. By noon, HR had launched a review of conduct and pulled him from client-facing duties. Nina didn't gloat. She simply filed the update in her growing folder labeled "Consequences." Documented. Later that day, she stood in front of the courthouse clerk's window, signing her name on the dotted line of a no-contact petition. Her voice never wavered as she said, "I'm requesting permanent restrictions from both Carla and Wesley Merritt. Digital, physical, indirect, all forms." The clerk handed her the carbon copy. "You're not the first to walk in here because of family, but I'll say you're the most prepared." That evening, Emma stood in the hotel lobby holding a single backpack. I need a quiet house," she said, looking up at Nina with tired eyes. "They haven't stopped fighting since Barbados. I can't even hear myself think." "You can stay as long as you need," Nina replied, pulling her in. "And not just because you're family, because you're brave enough to know when it's time to leave." Upstairs, Lara sat at the dining table surrounded by 5 inches of stacked evidence, neatly tabbed and cross-referenced. "We've got receipts, witness statements, digital forensics, and a cruise line ready to testify," she said, snapping a binder shut. "This isn't just a case, it's a master class." "I didn't want a master class," Nina said. "I just wanted peace." "Well, you're buying both with the same receipt." As the night fell quiet over the Charleston marina, Nina walked down to check her hotel mailbox, expecting nothing but room service flyers and maybe a bill. Instead, tucked between a folded newspaper and a real estate flyer, was a small white envelope with no return address. Inside, a single card, block letters, handwritten in black marker. "Enjoying your victory, it won't last." Nina stood still, the ocean wind brushing her cheek like a warning. She slipped the card back into the envelope and walked upstairs, slow, steady, and silent. The courtroom was colder than Nina expected, chilled by air conditioning and tension. The wood-paneled walls bore the weight of decades of decisions, and today Nina's quiet war would be settled beneath their gaze. She wore gray, clean, sharp, and neutral. No color, no drama, just presence. On her right, Lara stacked binders like chess pieces. Color-coded tabs jutted out like miniature flags: fraud, bank, cruise, harassment, medical lies. She was ready, and she didn't blink. Carla and Wes sat across the aisle, a full chair's width apart. Wes looked like he'd barely slept. Carla wore black, dramatic, and oversized, with a tissue already crumpled in her lap, before the proceedings began. Judge McMillan entered, stern, slow-moving, and unimpressed by emotion. He adjusted his glasses and nodded. "Let's proceed." Lara stood first, voice even and deliberate. "Your Honor, we're here not just for financial misconduct, but for psychological erosion masked as a vacation. What was stolen wasn't just money, it was identity, autonomy, and dignity." She handed the clerk Exhibit A, Nina's original booking with her full itinerary and the now infamous forged medical exemptions form. Exhibit B followed, transaction records showing Carla and Wes using Nina's funds for private excursions and spa upgrades, all logged through the cruise's internal system. The courtroom was silent, except for the soft slap of each page being turned. Then came the cruise line's representative, a corporate compliance officer, in a navy suit. "We have strict policies around guest removal," he testified. "No one can be marked as medically unfit without written confirmation from the individual or a physician. Miss Merritt's removal violated this. Additionally, her payment method remained active after she was taken off the manifest, which should never have happened." Judge McMillan nodded, scribbled notes. Then Wes was called. He walked to the stand with a forced calm, hand trembling slightly as he took the oath. Lara wasted no time. "Mr. Merritt, can you explain this photo taken at a port boutique of you swiping your mother's credit card while her account was supposedly inactive?" Wes cleared his throat. "Carla gave me the card. I thought it was authorized." "Thought," Lara said. "Yet here," she held up another document, "is an email sent from your account requesting Nina be marked as non-participating. Care to explain?" His face flushed. "Carla handled most of it. I didn't really know. So you were an accessory to fraud, but too disinterested to stop it," she said, voice dry. "No, that'll be all." Then Carla took the stand. At first her voice quivered. "I never meant to hurt Nina. She's family. I thought she wasn't well enough to travel. I was worried. Worried enough to use her money to book a couple's massage? Lara asked. Carla dabbed her eyes. That was Wes's idea. Wes's head snapped toward her. I didn't do any of this alone, she snapped, eyes darting toward the judge. He used the card. I told him not to touch it unless Nina agreed. You submitted the form, Lara said coldly. You accessed the concierge. You altered the reservation. Carla looked to the judge. He told me it was fine. Judge McMillan held up a hand. That's enough finger-pointing. Lara stepped back. Your Honor, I have no further questions. The documents speak for themselves. My client, as you'll notice, hasn't needed to speak once. Nina sat still, hands folded neatly. She didn't need to gloat. She didn't need to explain. Her silence was an indictment louder than anything she could have said. Judge McMillan took a long pause, then leaned forward. This court finds in favor of Miss Merritt. The actions taken against her were calculated, harmful, and unlawful. The defendants will pay court costs, damages in the amount of $48,000, and will be barred from opening any financial accounts in her name again. This ruling is public, and will be recorded accordingly. The gavel fell with a dull, satisfying thud. Court adjourned. Outside on the courthouse steps, Nina felt the sun warm her shoulders as Lara walked beside her, legal pad tucked under one arm. Hell of a win, Lara said. Nina gave a nod. They wanted public. Now it's public. Lara glanced sideways at her, lips twitching into something close to a smirk. You want to go one step further? The courthouse hallway still echoed with the sound of the gavel when Lara slid a single sheet of paper into Nina's hand. It was crisp, heavy, and printed in bold legal type. But the first thing Nina noticed wasn't the jargon. It was the number at the bottom. Restitution. With interest. Monthly. For 3 years. Full repayment, Lara said. With a structured plan the court will enforce. They miss a single check. It triggers wage garnishment. We could file liens if we want to be poetic. Nina scanned the page, quiet. You think they'll comply? Oh, they'll comply, Lara said. There's no cruise line left that'll take them. No job security. No reputation. The money's the least of what they've lost. Nina stared at the words final damages awarded, then looked up slowly. What if we made it mean something? Lara raised an eyebrow. Meaning? Nina pulled a pen from her purse. Add an amendment to the disbursement clause. First payment goes into a fund local nonprofit. Travel scholarship. For women over 60 who've never been on a real vacation. She paused. Let them fund the freedom they tried to steal. Lara blinked, then smiled, shaking her head in admiration. You don't just rise, you build ladders while you're at it. Later that day, they presented the amended agreement to Judge McMillan. He read it twice, slowly, then glanced over his glasses at Nina with a look of earned respect. This court approves the proposal, he said. And may I say, Miss Merritt, your dignity in all this is rare. They will now fund the very type of woman they tried to silence. Outside, a reporter waited near the courthouse steps, mic in hand, camera guy behind her. She stepped forward as Nina approached, ready to pounce. Miss Merritt, any statement? How do you feel about the outcome? Nina adjusted her sunglasses. They had their trip, she said evenly. I took the journey. The reporter blinked, stunned by the elegance of it. But Nina didn't pause to elaborate. She kept walking, Emma quietly falling in beside her. Back at the hotel, a quiet suitcase sat by the door. Emma had packed it herself. Neat rows of books, headphones, and a sweatshirt Nina had bought her last Christmas. She looked up from her phone as Nina entered the room. I'm staying, Emma said. No drama, just decision. Nina set her bag down. You sure? I'm tired of living in a house where people scream just to feel powerful, she replied. With you it's quiet and real. That night, the cruise line's president called Lara directly. Not an assistant, not a lawyer. The man himself. We want to make this right, he said. Lifetime VIP status for Miss Merritt. Anywhere, anytime. Complimentary annual trip. No strings. Nina didn't celebrate. She just nodded once and returned to her tea. Later, After Emma had fallen asleep on the couch and Lara had packed up her legal files, Nina opened her laptop for the first time all evening. Dozens of new emails. Most were congratulations or media inquiries. One stood out, an old address she hadn't seen in months, from Carla Merritt at Gmail. Come subject, please don't publish the receipts. She clicked it open. Carla's message was short. No greeting, no signature, just one long, desperate paragraph. You've made your point. I get it now. Please don't post the rest of it. The emails, the texts, it's all over anyway. Don't humiliate us more than you already have. Please, I'm begging you. Nina read it twice. She didn't respond. She closed the laptop and turned off the lamp, letting the dark settle around her like velvet. The marina lights flickered outside. Emma stirred slightly in her sleep. A breeze pushed through the open window, carrying the faint scent of salt and jasmine. She didn't need revenge anymore. She had receipts, and a scholarship fund, and a piece they'd never touch. The confirmation email hit Nina's inbox just after dawn. Subject line: Andromeda Mediterranean Charter. Confirmed. The itinerary stretched across the screen like a map of freedom. Amalfi, Santorini, Marseille. Each destination glittered with promise, a life lived on her own terms, far from the smoke and mirrors of anyone else's performance. She read the email twice, then whispered to the quiet room, "Booked." It was the kind of word that used to belong to other people. Round 2. Emma said from the kitchen doorway, hair a tangle, mug in hand. Round me, Nina corrected. The two of them packed together that morning. Emma rolling dresses while humming some indie pop tune, Nina folding silks with the care of a woman who knew she'd be seen. No more hiding behind cargo shorts and cruise ship anonymity. This trip would be different. She had no one to accommodate but herself. Emma pulled a coral sundress from the hanger and held it up. This one's going with us. You wore it to that brunch last month, and nearly took out every man over 60. Nina arched a brow. Brunch, yes, but not to impress. Emma grinned. That's why it worked. The farewell brunch was Dina's idea. The Marina Cafe had reserved the back patio just for them. White linens, fresh lavender in mason jars, and a little sign at the table that read, Bon voyage. Captain Nina. Jordan showed up in a linen shirt and boat shoes, dropping a manila envelope on the table beside Nina's croissant. Your custom itinerary, he said. Plus the emergency satellite number. And because I like to sleep at night, I've assigned my best captain. She's ex-Coast Guard. Don't try to impress her. You won't win. I'm not trying to impress anyone anymore, Nina replied, sipping her mimosa. But I will ask her if she likes lavender. Lara arrived 10 minutes late, holding a thick white envelope and an envelope-sized card. She slid the latter across the table toward Nina without a word. Nina opened it. Front. A golden compass. Inside. That was one hell of a ride. Alas. The other envelope held the first restitution check. Wes and Carla's funds, court-ordered and monitored, cleared into Lara's account that morning. It's officially yours, Lara said. And on time, surprisingly. Nina stood later that afternoon at the First Seaside Credit Union and handed the teller a signed deposit slip. Deposit to the Women Who Rise Fund, she said clearly. Nonprofit registration is already in motion. The teller, a young woman with a nose ring and warm smile, looked at the note on the account. Is this travel scholarships? For women over 60, Nina said, who've never been anywhere. The teller blinked. Nina smiled. That's accurate. Across town, Wes rang up sneakers for a customer at a discount shoe store off Rivers Avenue. A laminated trainee badge dangled from his lanyard. He didn't see the teenager filming him from behind a clearance bin. The video would be on TikTok by dinner, captioned from VIP suite to aisle 7. Carla had gone mostly dark online. No more daily selfies, no affiliate codes. Her last post was 2 weeks old. A reflective quote over a moody beach shot. The comments had not been kind. At Truth Hurts 63. Hope you packed humility in your carry-on. At Emma Struth Teller. Still waiting on the apology, for anything. Nina didn't engage. She didn't need to. Let silence carry the weight they refused to. Back in her hotel room, she zipped up the last suitcase as Emma held up the familiar maroon passport. Emma twirled it in her hand, smiling like someone who finally trusted the ground beneath her. You sure you want me in charge of this? Nina turned from the window, where sunlight stretched across the water like a ribbon waiting to be followed. I trust you, she said. But if it disappears again, I'm chartering a jet. Emma laughed. Deal. But her grip on the passport tightened, like she knew it was more than a document. It was power, history, and the cleanest kind of revenge. The yacht was unlike anything Nina had ever stepped onto. Sleek, modern, almost silent in its elegance. The Andromeda Siccan gleamed under the Mediterranean sun, a vessel of glass, polished teak and steel, so smooth it caught the morning light like a blade. She could smell the salt already, clean, rich, ancient, and the faint citrus of the lemon groves that lined the dock in Amalfi. As soon as she and Emma stepped onto the gangplank, a young crew member with an impeccable tan greeted them with a smile. Miss Merritt, he said, clipboard tucked under one arm. We've been expecting you. Welcome aboard. The second they stepped inside, the cool air conditioning met them like a whisper. A chilled glass of champagne was already waiting, delicate bubbles racing to the top of fine crystal. A vase of ivory roses sat in the center of their private suite's table, and beside it an embossed card in gold foil. Welcome, Miss Merritt. Here's to charting your own course. J.V. Nina's fingertips lingered on the edge of the card. She didn't smile. Not exactly. But her eyes softened, and something in her chest finally let go. Emma flopped onto the massive king-sized bed, bouncing once then laughing. I know we said quiet trip, but this feels like a Bond movie. We should have brought sunglasses just for dramatic effect. Nina set her glass down, took in the curved windows, the ocean spread endlessly beyond, and the feeling deep and unshakable that she wasn't just on a boat. She was standing in the life she'd built from ashes. This is the quiet, she said. Everything else was noise. By the time the yacht pulled away from the dock, they'd already unpacked. The stewardess had hung Nina's sundresses and folded Emma's novels on the nightstand, like they belonged there. The captain greeted Nina personally on the upper deck. We'll be following the coast through Capri, then out toward Nice. Smooth weather, perfect sunrise route. I've had enough rough weather, Nina replied. He nodded once and left her alone at the railing. Below her the wake trailed behind them, white and foaming, slicing through blue that seemed to stretch forever. The wind caught her scarf and carried it across her shoulder. Somewhere below, Emma was already exploring the infinity plunge pool and arguing with a crew member over whether she could use the telescope. Nina stayed there, still. The past felt smaller from up here. She pulled out her phone, not to post, not to scroll, just to check. One notification, one new message. From Carla Merritt, subject. No preview, no apology, no confession. Just her name hovering in Nina's inbox like a ghost trying to claw its way back into relevance. Nina tapped once, selected delete, then she turned her phone off completely and placed it in a drawer. She wouldn't be checking it again. Emma joined her at the railing. 20 minutes later, towel around her shoulders, skin kissed by wind and sun. This is the nicest thing I've ever done, she said. Not just the yacht. This feeling. Like everything's still happening, but it doesn't matter unless we say it does. Nina nodded. The sea shimmered like it understood. Emma hesitated. Do you think they learned anything? Nina took a breath. Let the salt and sun settle in her lungs. Not my concern, she said. This ship sails forward. They stood in silence together, side by side, watching the horizon pull closer like it belonged to them. No chaos, no noise, just clean wind, steady water, and the steady rhythm of a woman who knew she'd never again ask for permission to board. Nina stepped back from the rail, one hand brushing Emma's shoulder as they turned toward their private deck lounge. Somewhere behind them, the past still floated. But out here, it had no anchor. She didn't need revenge anymore. She'd claimed something better. They booked a cruise without me. I booked a life beyond them, and made sure they got the invoice.